Moving on to one of my favorite parts of the show. Why would he say that? We have to discuss all Eagles fans everywhere. And we'll use LaShawn McCoy for the thumbnail because he's been on this all year. But something Shannon Sharpe, I like Nightcap, and Shannon's an all-time great Bronco tight end. One of the best tight ends in NFL history. Don't accept in victory what you would not in defeat. Eagles fans and a lot of Eagles commentators and people in sports media discussing the Eagles we've just ignored and been totally wrong about how this team has been viewed the last year and a half. 2 years, they went to a Super Bowl. Here's the actual timeline of the Eagles. They go to a Super Bowl. They lose to the Chiefs. Jalen Hurts plays amazing. They then the next season start 10-1. Ironically, in that season, the only team they lost to was the Jets early on, and that was Zach Wilson, which may or may not be Zach Wilson's last NFL win. They then have this collapse, look bad in the playoffs against Tampa. And everybody goes, oh my gosh, what's going on with this team? They then rebound. They then have last season where they look shaky, kind of all regular season. There's issues still going on. But Saquon has a 2,000-yard season, which covers up a lot of issues. 2,000 yards will do that. Saquon this all-time season, the offensive line, but they don't look dominant. They're just a really good team. They were the 2 seed last year. So they weren't even the 1 seed. They weren't even theoretically start to finish the best team in the NFC. Then they go on this playoff run where they look dominant for 3 games. They beat the Packers. The Rams game was close. They dog-walked Washington, and then they dog-walked the Chiefs. And everybody used those 3 games as a reason to go, well, this is one of the greatest teams ever. And the name value was there. And I've been on this all year. The name value was absolutely there for them. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Mailata and Johnson on the O-line, Saquon, Carter, Davis, Quinyon, Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, who I don't know if people know, and the All-Pro voters, like he's a safety that sometimes plays slot corner, but I guess we're going to give him slot corner All-Pro. Zach Bond had an amazing season coming over from North. Like there were all of these amazing names, and the last thing we saw of them was dog walking the Chiefs and dog walking the Commanders. Like, oh my gosh, this team's amazing. So much so that we took that exact same feeling into this season and the entire season, even though there were issues. And there was no 2,000-yard season to cover up these issues. It was just, oh, well, you can't say anything because they're the defending champs. Oh, now the defense is even better. But clearly, even though you still have 2,000-yard receivers, even though we also got to have a conversation with that someday, that a 1,000-yard receiver, a 1,000-yard rusher is no longer the same because it's only about 60 yards a game, and that's not high-end impact, especially if you're just barely crossing the 1,000-yard mark. Still had Saquon Barkley, who obviously was not what he was last year. The O-line wasn't quite as good as last year, and Lane Johnson got hurt towards the end of the season. And while this defense was great, it was gettable. Now, they had last 6 weeks of the season, they were the number 1 defense, I think, in terms of points per game. End of the season on a heater defensively. But it just never quite felt right. But Eagles fans and Eagles people that were pro-Eagles just defended it with, well, we won the Super Bowl doing this last year. Eagles fans will hate this statement, and that's fine. The Eagles won the Super Bowl the same way Eli Manning Giants won Super Bowls. Now, they're more talented than the Eli Manning Giants, but they got on a heater, and they looked great at the right time of the season. Last year, this was not some team we looked at and went, oh my gosh, all-time legendary team. They're just too good not to lose. They could have lost the Rams game last year in the playoffs. That was the one close game they had. But because they beat Washington and they beat Kansas City so resoundingly, and they deserve it, we just said, oh, best team in the league, can't argue with them. They are what they are. Like, they're the defending champs. They have this great record. They just dominated the Super Bowl. They got hot at the right time, and they were dominant for 3 games. So don't color me the most shocked that their season ended the way that it did. Same we just talked about the Chargers. The Chargers season ended the way we all kind of looked around and went, yeah, that's how this team was supposed to lose. O-line couldn't block nobody at the end. The Eagles, inconsistent halves of football, at times struggled to complete a pass. Jalen Hurts was in these top 5 convos. This Eagles team that was in all-time greatest roster convos off of 3 games. And LaShawn McCoy and other Eagles defenders just kept saying, man, you can't tell us nothing. We're the champs. Oh, we already did this. You guys don't know. We already did this. Now, this same Eagles team, Kevin Patullo should be out of there. Nick Sirianni may be out of there. And who knows, maybe John Harbaugh gets this roster. That's my theory/opinion. And maybe they make a run back. But something was clearly broken. Inconsistent halves of football. Saquon was not Saquon. The O-line was not nearly as good as it was last year. This defense, while it was great, is going to get really, really expensive really, really fast. There were clear issues all season long that the fan base just decided to ignore. And the people in media discussing this team just decided to ignore. I started off the show. Not all one-and-done seasons are failures. But this Eagles season, objectively, was a failure. Because it never looked like even mid-season that they temporarily fixed the issue. The Chargers, at least, for all their O-line issues, it looked like, okay, they figured out a way to play with the bad O-line, and we're still able to score. The defense is playing as well as it could. The Eagles never, like I could have, and this is, I hate these kind of statements, but if the team looks like I could have coached it or you could have coached it because it was just, all right, guys, go out there and see what we can do. We already know what we're good at. We already know our flaws. When you're paying a head coach millions of dollars, that's not what you want it to look like. So for all the Eagles supporters in the media who just ignored all the issues all year long, that's how this season was supposed to end, when you ignore all these issues. One and done in the playoffs, and a roster that is about to have major overhaul, and a defense that's about to become really, really expensive.